Okay, maybe we should keep start here. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this conversation today with me and my really good friend Farhad and Mohit. My name is Pejman Nozal. I'm one of the partners of Pair Ventures. We are an early stage firm investing in kind of day zero in your company and helping you build category defining companies. Some of the companies you might know, we were the seed investor in DoorDash, Gusto, Garden Health, and then many others. But more importantly, I'm just excited to have Farhad Mohit today as our special guest. Farhad is a serial entrepreneur and an amazing person. You will know about him. And I've been waiting for this conversation for long, maybe a couple of years, and I'm glad we're doing it. I think there's so much to learn from Farhad, both as an entrepreneur and as a person. Um, I had um, I had a coffee with Farhad a few weeks ago in LA, and I came home and I told my wife that I meet so many amazing entrepreneurs, but the way that Farhad looks at the world today and how we can use technology to empower people is just really astonishing. So Farhad, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on, and thank you for doing all you do for startups and young entrepreneurs. I mean, I think it's it's great. With my beard, you can tell I've been around this game for a long time, and we certainly didn't have as much infrastructure as Pair provides.
I must tell, entrepreneurs in LA, I just like good-looking people, good shape, and so on. I really like it. So for both of you, just quick background on Farhad. Farhad started in 1996 Bizrate right out of school and grew it to be a top 50 worldwide site, surveying tens of millions of customers. And then after that, Farhad founded Shopzilla. It was one of the first and still one of the largest shopping search engines in the world. And last, he was the founder CEO of Flippagram, which had over 300 million downloads in under 3 years, making it one of the largest and fastest growing mobile apps at all time. And as you know, Flippagram became TikTok. So Farhad, I looked at these companies and I felt that it you opened up a new category on each one, and in fact that you were ahead of its time over there. So I want to go back at Bizrate. Can you tell us what drove you first to become a founder, and what did you choose to start Bizrate right out of business school at Wharton?
Yeah, well, what drove me to become a founder is somewhat desperation for me. I didn't want to. I was in business school mostly because I'd worked a couple of years in IT consulting. I was with Anderson Consulting, which is now Accenture. Out of school, I had a computer science math degree, and I went and worked for an IT consulting firm, and I hated it. I hated the whole process of being in a bureaucratic firm, wearing a suit and tie. It was not my thing. So I went to business school to try to take a couple of years to figure out what I'm going to do. And there I realized that there's more suits and more ties. Banking and consulting was everybody does out of business school from Wharton. And I didn't want to do that. I luckily ran into the internet around that time and started seeing that there's a possibility there of doing something big. It was going to be big. I could see that, and that it needed some computer science and background would be helpful. And then the people who were really going to get affected by it, the businesses and older people who had no idea this change is coming. They spoke this weird language of business that I was learning in business school. So I would find myself in the right place at the right time in the right area. And I said, wow, the other great thing was I saw Jerry Yang and Philo, with Yahoo. They didn't look like they were wearing suits and ties. I said, you can maybe do something in this space. And, why Bizrate, ratings of customer service. To me, it seemed like, these guys in their dorm, Jerry and Yahoo, were kind of organizing the links on the page. That was useful for information. You could go to one link into the next. But if you're going to buy something, you needed something more than that. You needed more assurance than two guys in a dorm saying this link is good. So I thought of a rating system for e-commerce. And because commerce was obviously going to be, to me, a big, if the internet succeeds, collapses space and time into a thing that anyone can get to anything at any time, the next thing is who's trustworthy and who's not. So you're really picking a business model that makes sense for the type of change that's coming, and then jumping into it really out of the desperation of not wanting to work for another company with a suit and a tie.
And then you went on and you founded Shopzilla as, if I remember, just right before .com crash, and even Flippagram was at the difficult time of the company over there you founded. And so, I mean, good entrepreneurs don't time, there's no good time and bad time you start a company, you start a company. But can you speak of those obstacles and how did you overcome, like starting a shopping search engine at the .com crash?
Yeah.
And walk us through what was the challenges over there and how did you overcome?
Well, first of all, we were in a good place at a right time. It's one of the most important things you can do as an entrepreneur is really actually pick a market that's expanding the right way, and so a rising tide lifts all boats. So, Bizrate was e-commerce, ratings and research. At the right time, e-commerce was exploding. By 1999, we were a top 50 website. People were talking about us going public. They're saying eToys is an $8 billion company. It was at the time. You can be bigger than them. Say, wow, okay, that's going to be fantastic. So we had all this promise running into 1999. And Shopzilla was actually a reaction to the market imploding. It was a reaction to we luckily raised a lot of money right at the edge. That there was luck involved there for us to raise $52 million in March of 2000. But as the market imploded around us, the entire .com bubble burst, and suddenly e-commerce, research, all of it, none of it meant anything anymore. We had this war chest, about $60-70 million that was in our war chest from the 80 million we'd raised in the two rounds prior to the .com, one in July of 1999, one in March of 2000. We had all this money, and we had to figure out quickly now how we're going to get to profitability. It wasn't like how big is your head count, how many hits you have on your website, and how great e-commerce is going to be, and you're bigger than eToys. Well, eToys is shutting down. They're bankrupt. So suddenly that story doesn't work anymore. And so we looked at it and said, look, can we be a research company, which we're selling research at Bizrate, or be a market maker, and pivot into making a market and selling clicks and selling sales, making sales. That's the pivot really of Bizrate, which was a top 50 traffic website, into Shopzilla, which became a $250 million a year revenue business with 50 million in EBITDA in like 2 years or 2.5 years after pivoting and dropping a lot of people and recalibrating. So Shopzilla was a pivot out of Bizrate and taking the ratings and saying price, we need prices as well and have the search engine. So it's more about, it wasn't timing the market or anything else. It's really looking at the reality of what you're facing, how much runway you have, and how you can get to the next milestone, whatever that is. In our case, we needed to get to profitability because nobody was going to give any more money to a company in 2001, 2002, 2003 timeframe. So we got to profitability by 2003. We actually ended up using about 75 million of the 77 million total that we'd raised before we hit profitability. And we pulled out of it. And by 2005, we were, making that 250 million a year, in revenue, and we had a really good business. Unfortunately, the team itself was not in a place that was able to carry on. We had to sell because the CEO that we brought in wasn't working out for me and some of the other founders, and the team kind of imploded. We had actually a really good business at the time that we sold, and we sold, and it didn't continue. The momentum did not continue through the acquisition, and that was unfortunate. We missed the ability to be Shopify, maybe Alibaba. Some of the things that we were building were predating those and building kind of big marketplaces like that. But we never got to fulfill that vision because the team has to also stick together and be able to go through all these things.
And that's leading to the same question I have for Flippagram, because I think what you did over there, correct me if I'm wrong, you were the first platform allow people use music freely in these videos. And I think for a startup to go to these music labels, obviously you have been an entrepreneur established, it's a monumental achievement. I know, because music labels, I mean, they think these songs are their soul, and they live for it. And this is so ahead of time. I mean, people use TikTok today, but you created it before in that platform, and you grew to 300 million downloads. What I want to ask, and I think is important for entrepreneurs on this call to know, is that do you follow a process of ideation, or is curiosity, or is combination of things happen? Like, for example, you took part of the things you saw in Bizrate and you started Shopzilla. What was the defining moment for Flippagram that you said, okay, people should use music in these short videos, which at that time was just, I mean, I don't think anybody at that time had any idea of this as a platform.
Yeah, it's not as sexy and well thought out as you might imagine. I mean, so the story of Shopzilla was that we sold in 2005. I worked there a couple of years trying to make it happen and didn't. It wasn't working out. So 2007, when I left and took a few months off, but came back with a new idea. And the new idea was called Dot Spots. We won't get into it, but Dot Spots didn't quite work, but the team was great. And we pivoted to something called Gripe. I won't get into what that was either, but that didn't quite work. A couple of years into that, so pivoted again into something called Cheers. Now, so we saw 2017. Now this is 2000. Cheers was a mobile app, positive kind of social ratings and things like that. It's thinking about gratitude instead of narcissism, a smaller market. It didn't work either. So 2013, late 2013, we were running out of ideas, running out of cash. I put a lot of my own money into it. And this was 7 years sort of into six going on 7 years into kind of this thing. But I'd been learning a lot. And when a team, we were out of ideas, and I said, look, we have six months to go here. So around, the end of the year here, we have to around my birthday, February. If we can't get financing, which I don't think we can, and if we don't come up with a better idea than Cheers, we're out of luck. So we can either just split the company up right now, or come up with something else. My CTO said, hey, what about this company called Flippagram? I'm talking to them. It's not a company. There's 3 guys who are working on this tool. It kind of has some potential. You've been talking about a social object since Dot Spots, then to Gripe, then to Cheers, and none of those social objects had worked. What about a Flippagram? And a Flippagram was a flipping set of photos and music that you had on your phone. I looked at this thing and I was like, wow, this is actually an amazing object, but it has some issues. Now, this, cut a long story short, 1 month into kind of partnering with the Flippagram guys, which we bought their company, we brought them into our company, and we laid out 5 things they needed to do. 4 of those things were to change the brand and fix it, to put the brand at the bottom of each creation so people could see it, make it free instead of charging $1, simplify the product so it doesn't have all the bells and whistles you've put in, so that you can easily, quickly make a Flippagram, and what was the 5th one? One thing. Add music from anywhere to this thing. We kind of put this proposal together. This proposal happened to be right on every front, but it took 7 years of being wrong on every front to get to that point where he knew what these guys needed to do in order to be successful. Because we took a month to do everything except for putting the freeing the music up. So you had to have music on your phone before to attach to these things. I wanted to have music from all of iTunes. But we launched this thing, and within 6 days of being in the free app store, it was the #1 app in the free app store. 1 month later, by around December 18th or so of 2013, we opened up all of iTunes. By the way, this is not legal to do, was illegal. The calculated bet that this is the greatest way to discover music and that has ever been created. So we put all of those iTunes previews. They had a 90-second preview. We have a 30-second object. Our 30-second object should have these free songs and a little buy button next to it. And we'll see if it works. In Persian, you say, "Sang moft go and jish moft." You throw, the stone is free and the bird is free. You throw it and you see if you have dinner. The idea, I talked to my music lawyers. They said to me, if you do this, it's $450,000 per song violation. You have a mechanical rights, $150,000. Publishing rights, $150,000. derivative work right, 150,000. Said, okay, that's $450,000 I don't have. And by the time the music companies came knocking to us, there's 10 million a month. So 10 million times 400,000, $450,000. That's a lot of money, more than most people would do it. But by that time, we were the top app in the 87 countries around the world. So we had a strong negotiating position. So the story is that you got to be prepared for luck to find you. You know, it's 7 years of preparation for the overnight success that Flippagram was. And then you have to take chances where you believe there is a possibility to make a market. Nobody had taken that chance before. Everybody was afraid. When I talked to my music lawyer, he said, never, ever do anything without talking to the music companies beforehand, because they'll kill you, they'll sue you. Didn't you know Napster, this, that? And I said, if I talk to them, I don't even have the time to talk to them. I'm gonna be bogged down for years with negotiations. And even when they came to me with 10 million a month, even when the value proposition was there, it still took us 18 months to get fully licensed for all these people. By the way, that got me an audience to go in front of teach Daniel Ek of Spotify how to do this. I said, you have to be Iranian, my friend, to make these deals.
Very interesting. You know, you mentioned after Shopzilla, you started a few efforts that didn't work. One or two. Can you walk us through this? That how long does it take you to figure out? I mean, not so how long does it take, but what did you see that it doesn't work? Is it something that you can share with entrepreneurs when they're trying something that doesn't work? And sometimes, you know, you try and something doesn't work, you have to change maybe your sales speech, you have to do different things. That doesn't mean the product is bad. I mean, what are the signals you get typically that say, okay, this doesn't work, let's work on something else? And I think the other one I think I learned from you is just a matter of you had a really, really good team and you trust and said, okay, if this doesn't work, we work on something else. And I think that's the value of having an exceptional team, that you can always try different things.
It's good, but it doesn't keep you. The resilience of making something work is what's most important. By the end of it, by the time Flippagram actually started, there was not a single member from the original team on the team except for myself. So we pivoted, and the capital structure I kept. All my investors from, you know, dot spots were in Flippagram suddenly, and that was a different story. But the team rotated, but the team was good. The team has to be good. If the team is not good, doesn't matter what your idea is. And by good, what does that mean? You have to have honest people that you're working with, in my opinion. You have to have intelligent people because you're working in areas that are unknown and you need to figure stuff out. And you have to have driven people who want to make things happen and they don't give up. Beyond that, of course, non-overlapping skills, very good as well. Like, you know, I'm very good at product and sales. I'm not as good at operations. I need an operational person, and a technical person. So you need to have that type of team. Now, what are signals that something isn't working? For dot spots, it was the best idea really I ever had, but the market was the wrong market. We were trying to help bring annotation to the news, and this was 2007. Now you would call it fake news, and help sort of people be able to annotate the news and get citizen media in there and enhance the news. The problem was it was in the newspaper business, shrinking business. All they care about is revenue, and we were trying to improve the quality of the products. The product market fit wasn't, and we had to need the downloadable kind of component or a browser plugin. Wrong format. So that said, good entrepreneurship is sort of having a delusional kind of belief that you can do something. So you have to have delusion, but you have to be practical at the same time. So at some point, that delusion was like, okay, this isn't going to work. Now move over and don't try to put lipstick on a pig, pivot. And we pivoted to Gripe, which was social media was starting to pick up. Gripe was a way to complain using your real identity and your social media following. And with the idea that each gripe should become a cheer when the company resolves it. And so it was a totally different idea, but more in a place where we thought social media is happening. It was more mobile based. These smartphones were going around, so you could do these kind of gripes on location. And so we tried that. The problem with that was not enough usage. And so not repeat usage. Like, people do not have gripes every day, and they won't want to pay you. They won't know about you. So we had that issue. So so we went to Cheers because people were cheering on the Gripe app. I said, if they're cheering on the Gripe app, why don't we just make an app called Cheers and really go after positive social media? Social media doesn't seem to be very positive right now. It leaves people feeling empty. They're narcissistic, but it doesn't get a thing. Maybe if you cheers to Pejman Nozad, he's such a wonderful VC and he likes it. I like it. I get people say, what a nice guy, Farhad is, he appreciate it. Okay. So that had a nice base of users who really cared about it, but it wasn't a breakout type of a thing. So you could keep going along with it, but it wasn't going to get there. So it's various different things that tell you something is working or is not working. They're not always the same thing, but ultimately you want to be in this game, you got to be in the game. Like that. I was in the game until I kept telling my wife, I can't let my team down. I can't let them down. At the end of it, she was like, none of your team is there anymore. They're all different people. I'm like, I know, but these people, the people who are here now, I can't let them down,
You have gone through founding and scaling 3 companies. What have you done investing in yourself to grow as the company grow? And to me, always I've seen founders like you, they grow with the company. How did you grow as a leader? I think what Farhad, Mohit, who you were when you started Bizrate is, I'm pretty sure was different than more experience when you did Flippagram. But what have you done to invest in yourself and share that with entrepreneurs?
I think over time, initially I was deer in the headlights. So like many people, I couldn't believe somebody's giving $4.5 million to me. Like, what, are they crazy? And I was, I didn't have enough faith. They had more faith in me than I had in myself because I'd never done this before, and so as I started to learn these, some things about it, I actually was too eager to give up control. Like around 1999, we brought in a CEO for Bizrate / Shopzilla. And that turned out to be a big mistake 4 years later, because he was coming in to be a hood ornament and take this thing public and be, whatever, when it didn't go that way. And we needed to actually go back to product market fit, build Shopzilla. He became a hindrance, and ultimately we couldn't all work together. So it was him or us, and we had to sell the company to get rid of him. That's how Shopzilla went down. But it's a process of self-discovery, and what I would say now, my person that I am now, I know the things that I'm good at, and it's a certain subset of things that you need to be successful in a company, right? And so I've become better and better at finding other people to complement that and being good at what I'm good at and not trying to be good at everything. And I'm a startup guy perpetually. Like, I'm the 0-1 kind of person. Like, so I'm not even interested, in 10, 1,000, 1 million. And that's why, literally, some of these companies have, all of them actually have been in spaces that are $1 trillion spaces. TikTok might be a $400 billion IPO. I was not the person to take it to that place. And I know that for myself. And so that's the biggest piece of thing I could tell young founders is figure out what you're good at, and figure out how to partner with people who you can get along with, are honest, intelligent, passionate, that complement your set of skills and want the same ends. If you're all after it, all you are after is the IPO and the money, that's great. If one of you wants to change the world and one of you wants the IPO, the only money, that's a problem. That means you don't have the same goals. But that's my biggest suggestion is to know thyself in the process. And as you get older, you get hopefully a little bit better at knowing yourself, your limits, and hopefully where you can contribute.
Yeah, very well said. I'm going to ask the last question about kind of the startups, and mostly it's about fundraising. I think today's environment, it's very different. Actually, when we started Pair in 2013, there were around 160 seed funds. Today is over 2,000, and then solo venture capital is a lot of capital available. I think if you are after a big market and a decent team, you can present. I'm not saying it's easy, but there's so much capital out there. But when you have gone through different phases of fundraising and that has changed, how did you raise money first for Bizrate? Out of school, Wharton, come on, Bizrate. Who gave you money?
Yes, that's okay. So Bizrate, was a process of 2 years of building a business. The traditional. I moved into my parents' house out of Wharton with 200,000 in debt, and I also brought my friend Henry Assaili, bring an Iranian guy, bring an Arab guy with him to move in with his parents. Wonderful idea and beautiful setup for success. So we built a profitable company literally in e-commerce space and with really nice metrics growing very fast, when we were able to convince, some, not your Sequoias and Pears of the world, the top tier, but, VCs, but some people who are willing to take a bigger risk because their profile isn't as high, gave us $4.5 million. Luckily, that turned into a very big and successful exit for them, the biggest they ever had, and built a foundation of a reputation. Becomes easier because at the end of the day, sort of raising money, what are you trying to do? You're selling sort of a story, a hot air. I would say. I say my job is selling hot air to VC. That's my first job as an entrepreneur, is just give a story to people interested in a return. And VCs are also, you have to know your animal that you're dealing with. They're herd animals. They like to pretend that they're the leader and whatever else, but all of them are kind of looking at, it's very, very rare that it's so obvious that this is going to be a success and that's going to be a failure. But if you start seeing a bunch of other people coming into something, then I should be in there too, because we succeed or fail together. So understanding the dynamics, network dynamics. So you want to tell a good story. You want to back that story up with as much metrics as you can, and up into the right type charts. You want to have a great team that has a reputation and build, and has shown some, ability to do that. You want to be, and then you want competition for your round. You want that herd instinct and that animal, competitive instinct of the VCs to kind of make them jump. And if you have all of those things, it's pretty straightforward to do that. We raised for Flippagram. I was a second time, a third time arguably entrepreneur. I had a really good reputation of not burning people's money. That Flippagram was the #1 app in 87 countries, growing faster than any other app had ever grown. And we had a story that said we're gonna, give Flippagram, Facebook, and Snap a run for their money. And so everybody was throwing money at it, and we closed our $70 million round in 10 minutes, in 10 days, really. And that was me delaying things, and we got, Sequoia, and I had Mike Moritz and John Doerr on my board, along with Naval Ravikant from, so
the only company I know that John Doerr and Mike Moritz were on the board were Google. So
that's correct. Yeah. So, and with us, John only got observation rights. So I wish he'd gotten the same outcome as he did with Google, though. I didn't.
Raja Helmi has a question for you, and maybe this is a long answer, but what has been the most difficult thing you have had to overcome with respect to startups you have found?
I think it's this. There's I don't know what you call it, the trough of despair, or I call it the flat part of the exponential. The flat part of an exponential curve looks like this, and the flat part of it looks like nothing, because it is nothing. You're building and nothing is happening. You're showing and nobody's accepting. And you have to figure out how to continue to trudge along on that front, and really, I think that especially with people's attention spans and expectations dwindling, especially with the media hyping up things like Snapchat and others that seem like they come out of nowhere. Even Flippagram, they say it's overnight success, right? I say 7-year overnight success, because yes, when we pivoted to Flippagram, a month later, we're the #1 app in the world. Well, great, but that's not the way it usually works. There's 7 years of nothing behind that, and doubt and whatnot. So to me, the hardest part of and the most the secret weapon of an entrepreneur is being able to continue to trudge forward through with very little positive reaffirmation, and not lose faith in yourself, your team. Figure out that you'll figure it out after.
I want to switch to Burning Man, and I have two things to say. One, I think being a board member of Burning Man is a lot cooler than being on the General Motors board. So, and then how did you get that? What does it mean? Tell us a little bit. Okay, how did you get on the board of Burning Man? And then what do you do as a board member of Burning Man? Decisions you have to make and so on. And how big is the board?
I 100% agree with you. To me, the honor of my lifetime is the biggest honor of my lifetime is being on the board of Burning Man. It's Burning Man is a cultural phenomenon that is unbelievable in what it does for people who have been there. It's an amazing thing. It is a rave in the desert at one level, but at the sort of at its philosophical level, it's the way to turn on the creative and altruistic and abundant kind of energy inside of yourself and become a more holistic creative person. Your creative power is is unlocked with the setup that they have there. Everyone is doing that. So as far as joining the board, it's an honor. It's a big board. It's 18 people. My wife is also on the board. They invited us as a couple, and they have a couple of other couples on the board as well. And which is an interesting position that they take, because my wife is very different than I, and you haven't met her yet, but you will. And we are complementary in many ways. But the what do I do on the board there? Well, COVID hit, and for an event that's supposed to be in person and immediate and whatnot, it got shut down basically, and even this year got shut down again. And so I initially was deer in the headlights on the board, like, wow, these are all heroes of mine, these bohemian, crazy people who, all the founders are still involved and on the board, except for Larry Harvey, who passed away, the core founder passed away in 2018. They're all involved. It's an amazing organization. These 6 people have 100 full-time staff. The 100 full-time staff get 800 people that are 4 months of the year working there. Those 800 people bring 11,000 full-time kind of volunteer types at the event. If you've been there, the gates, the coffee, the art, the placement, the heavy lifting, the doors, the security, the rangers, everything is a volunteer run there. So 11,000 people and 80,000 people come and co-create. So it's this maddeningly complex and amazing organization. And I'm like, what am I doing here? Like, really, how did they I know I hit it off with the founders. I know we were with it, but 3 months in, I knew what I was doing there, because suddenly the Burning Man is facing an existential crisis. They have 10 million in the bank. It's a $40 million event, $45 million event. They have another, X million dollars of payroll. They're not going to make it to the end of the year. And I was like, wow, feels like a startup. I know what you got to do here. You got to put together a plan, a vision. You got to sell that vision to the organization. You got to go raise some money. Let's do it, and we put together with the team something called Vision 2020, which is a document to save the man, green the man. So save the man means save the 100 people that are core to Burning Man. Because if they go away, the 800 people don't come around, 11,000, all city disappears. Save those 100 people, put them to productive use, which is get them to green the man. That's one of the things about Burning Man, is that it burns a lot of, adds a lot of carbon to the universe, that they're trying to figure out how to do that without run the event without being, and then bring it home, which means distribute Burning Man culture across the world. So we came up with a vision, started raising money, saved that demand from last year and this year, and we're building for that future vision. So that's what I do on the board now. It's like because we're in startup times, I'm able to provide some of the tools that
That's amazing. Congratulations to you and the organization to have you over there. I want to move to what you do these days, but I want to ask audience if you have any question. Meanwhile, you can type it in. So don't wait all the way to the end. We want to keep this like open conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything anyone's interested in, I would love to answer.
Yeah, and then Farhad, you are. I love how you use this title. Is you're a full-time volunteer and founder of Good Party, and Good Party, for the audience, is building a free software for free elections. Tell us more about it. When did you start it? What is the philosophy behind it, and how people can participate or help you in this organization?
Yeah, so after the sale of Flippagram to ByteDance, who's a parent of TikTok, I was sort of done with the commercial piece. I didn't, and I was thinking, I have all this resources, and what can I have impact? I wasn't done building, but I wasn't interested really in doing another commercial venture necessarily. I was interested in what can I do to have the most impact. And when I looked at myself, I said, look, you have resources, something about technology and building something. you're an immigrant. I mean, it's a big part of my personality is that I came to this country. My parents came to this country for what its ideals are, what it stands for, the Constitution. And I'm a disruptor. By definition, I like to go into industry and disrupt it. And I was looking at sort of where is the biggest impact, and to me, it's very clear that as robotics gets more advanced, as AI gets more advanced, and we have Moore's law kind of multiplying those effects, there's nothing you can do with your hands, nothing you can do with your mind is going to be a machine will be able to do better than you for most of those things. So if you look at the next 20, 30 to 50 years, the market you want to be in is the rules market. What are the rules of how these machines are going to be operating and who they're going to be working for and things. They're going to be operating for capital and for the good of money, making more money and for the few. That's dangerous. It could lead to dystopia. You're already seeing situations where someone like Zuckerberg has 24 million a year in security fees to keep himself safe, right? That's ridiculous for somebody that has done, like where he is. You should not have to worry about that. But at the bottom, there's all these people where we have all these capabilities, have all these things. So the question is, how do you change the rules? Well, in a democracy, you change them with democracy tools. And when I look at the space is ripe for disruption. There is red and blue both suck. They're owned by money and special interests. Neither one is optimal. And independents have no way of getting in. The system is rigged against them. So simple idea here was to work in a space, build technology and tools that can give independent third-party candidates a on-ramp to get into our democracy and change the rules. Because if you can get them in without money, and using technology and community as the leverage, community type tools, social tools as a leverage, you will be able to get people who actually represent people. And if you get people who represent people, you can start changing the rules bend towards humanity. If you can do that, life becomes a utopia. I think we can all live in Burning Man because AI will take care of it. AI and robotics will take care of all the menial stuff, and we'll share the bounty with everybody. It's super idealistic to some level, but that's what we're building.
Tell me, what does the software do? I mean, and I know you have to build it. Yeah, but give us some bullet point of what does it do?
Right now, we take every step of the process of how you would get elected. So one piece of it is how do you get how do you get awareness for your campaign? Everyone has a donate button. We're providing people an endorse button, which says, I like this candidate, tell other people about it. I'm going to vote for this person. You guys all vote for him too. So we're building an endorse button that everybody can use instead of donating money. Give your vote to them and tell other people about it. We want to show people how many votes are needed to win, kind of like change.org or GoFundMe. So crowd voting tools, so that if you want to vote for a third party, one of the big hurdles is, am I wasting my vote? So we start show you how many votes are needed, how many votes you have so far. And if you have enough, you vote for them. If you don't, pick one of the garbage two choices you have left. That's a good tool. Another one is how to get people on the petitioning, sign petitions to get on a ballot, and how to build those tools in a way so that you can have Zoom witnessing of the petitioning instead of having to do it in a park walking around. It brings a lot of efficiency to the process, and build all of these tools in a way that is usable by these folks, so learn what their workflow is like and work into their workflow and make them free, so that they don't have, because independent candidates don't have money. You don't want them to have money. You don't want them to go raise money. So those are the kinds of tools we're building, and it's a very, very open space. Most of the people that have a lot of talent are working in commercial space, so we have sort of not a lot of competition, but we have a lot of impact, and I think we have a lot of satisfaction at our work. So anybody who's interested in doing that kind of stuff, look me up. I'm excited to have more people on board.
What is the URL for the Good Party?
Yeah, goodparty.org.
Goodparty.org. Anybody is interested, just go on goodparty.org.
Absolutely.
If you're interested, you can reach out to Farhad. Sadaf is asking, you mentioned several times that you started your company at the right time, beginning of .com internet. How much you think that it's difficult for someone to start a company now in 2021?
I think it's much easier to start a company now. It's harder to stand out maybe because there's so many people able to start a company. We had to host our own servers when we were building. We had to build literally little server farms, and host Shopzilla servers. So there was a whole bunch of other skills, and I had to learn HTML, code the front page, HTML 1.0, pain in the ass if you've ever worked with it. So there's always hurdles to starting a business, and there are issues you have to overcome. But I think today the difficulty of starting a business is much lower now because of all the infrastructure that's there. But that's a secondary problem because now everyone can start a business. Now, how do you differentiate a business? And I would say pick areas that are not a lot of other folks are, but that are going to be growing. That's one of the things to do.
Anonymous is asking, what was your career goal after you graduated from school?
I had after graduating college, I didn't even know there was a job, a board or a career services in the college. At UCLA, I didn't go there. I was such a bad student. I was a good partier, bad student. So I did not know what I want to do at all, and that's why I stumbled into IT consulting, without any knowledge of it. I knew what I did not want to do as soon as I stepped in there, but that didn't really have a plan for me. So I just went back to school, a business school, as a way to try to figure out what to do next. Uncle Sam, would lend me money, and my parents were okay with me going to business school or graduate school because they're Iranian and they think, if it's more school, better. It would be better if I was a doctor, of course, but like my father, but I wasn't going to do that. So I didn't have really a plan like that, but it crystallized for me when I saw the internet and its potential and the fact that I didn't have to dress, in a particular way. So
Isha is asking, if you didn't sell Flippagram, what was your vision?
Yeah, good question. My vision for Flippagram, and it may still come to pass, is that it was the future of narrative. When I saw it, I said, picture is worth 1,000 words. That's, pen is mightier than the sword. So word is stronger than physical. Picture is worth 1,000 words, because so much more. Video is better than picture. And I thought, here's video, text, and music all together in an object that everyone has. This is the future of narrative. This is democratization of narrative. And, if we hadn't sold it, I kept at that, but it seemed like the part of the market that needed to be explored was what Musical.ly did, which was 8 to 13-year-olds dancing in front of a mirror, and increasingly sort of in a salacious kind of way. And I wasn't excited about that area at all, because 8 to 13-year-olds are protected by the Child Online Protection Act, COPA. And I was not going to go there. So it needed, in order to potentially get to where it needed to go through this yucky portal, which pedophiles hang out in as well. I wasn't up for that. And Musical.ly was, and they ran into that trouble, and both of them were required by ByteDance, who has managed to, I think, open up the funnel a little bit and have more use cases. So now maybe TikTok becomes the future of narrative. I just was not prepared to go through the portal that needed to go to. So I don't think, I think I would have killed the company if I kept insisted on not selling it, but I didn't do that. So
Richard is actually director of Peer Accelerator, and he's asking, many of the Peer Accelerator companies are first-time founders who are mentally facing a tremendous amount of uncertainty. Any tips on how to deal with it?
Yes, I definitely do. And this comes from Dr. Chalfin, who is my legal aspects of entrepreneurship professor back in Wharton, one of the classes that I thought was going to be boring as hell, but actually was actually helpful. And his view, and he said it very clearly, he said, like, you may feel like you're taking a big risk and you're under a lot of pressure or whatever, but your risk profile is never going to get better. Like, as time goes on, if you think you're working at a Bank of America or a consulting firm, and you're going to do this for a few years and you're going to get a nest egg and then you're going to jump out there, it's going to get worse the longer you're out of the startup game. And right now, if you're a founder and young founder in this thing, you probably are living on ramen. You're not that have such a high expectation in your life. Just grind through it and know the worst thing that happens, you go work for another startup. I mean, it's a beautiful time to build skills. Are you building skills? Are you learning anything? There is no risk here. Like the risk is going and working for a big company that lays you off 15 years down the line after your salary, and now you have nothing to show for it, and no real skills that are relevant to any of the stuff that's happening here. So learn as much as you can. Don't worry about it, and don't get yourself in that mindset of, if I had a little bit more money, a little bit more time, I'm going to work for a few years here and then come back, because this is what Dr. Chalfant said. I think it's true. As soon as you start to go for the safe option, you start then to say, then you start to compare yourself to other people who are living the safe option. They want to have a nicer car. You get a nicer car too, because you're going to the same. You don't want to be in the same back of the Dodger Stadium. Now you want to be a little bit closer up. Why? Because your peers are all living in this safe world. They're slaves to the system. And so you do that too. And you become, and then you might get married, you might have kids, and and then now they got to go to school, and so you're suddenly looking at any time you want to jump back into this risk, the risk is 1,000 times higher. So you may be anxious right now, you may be worried right now, but the risk is never going to get lower than this. And there is really no risk if you're learning in a startup environment in tech, because the opportunities are boundless, and nobody looks at you and said, oh, your last startup failed. It's like, of course it failed. All the startups fail. I learned these things. Here I am to help you. I had sick, the DotSpots, Drive Cheers failed, and they created Flippagram, which was a pretty big success, and they led to that. They did not fail. And despite that, I made it. Because of that, I made it, Flippagram,
I appreciate that. These are beautiful words. It should be written in gold. So I'm gonna watch it again, remind myself to take more risks, Farhad, going forward. So thank you.
I don't know. I think you've done a pretty good job.
I think I just want to end up with your love for Iranian culture and heritage. I know you're on the board of Farhad Foundation, which perhaps is the most prestigious and most active nonprofit organization in the world to promote Iranian culture and heritage. Which I don't know if any of you have been in the city of Los Angeles. There's a freedom sculpture was donated by the Farhad Foundation, and Farhad and his team are behind it. But my question is mostly about the food, and I know you and I, we love Persian food, Iranian food, and what is your favorite Iranian food? And if you can explain what it is, just don't say the name enough for people who haven't. I'm pretty sure everybody has Persian food.
I've a lot of favorites, and they kind of shift over time. But I think if I pick one, is tachin is my favorite Iranian food. It's a sort of yogurt, chicken, and crispy tahdig, kind of a yellow rice mixture. That's like a cake or a quiche. It's an amazing dish that I'm sure you've had it for sure. I love that, but we've had pomegranate trees now that in our house, and Nushin, my wife, makes this incredible June as well. That's not too sweet, so it's also a fantastic one. And the Farhad piece has been an honor to co-found that and launch it, and it really happened when I went to Iran for the first time after 2007. I went to Iran, in that break that I had from between Shopzilla and DotSpots. And I went for 5 weeks, and then again in 2008 I went for 5 weeks. And I went to Iran as a first generation American. I came back from Iran as an Iranian American, and I realized that there's a lot of my culture and heritage, a lot of the things I find good about myself as an entrepreneur, even the way I relate to other people, the way I negotiate, the way I many things, the way I socially work. Was my Iranian parts of my personality that I was actually didn't realize and were latent, but part of my upbringing. And now when I went to Iran, it became very clear to me. So I came back here and I thought, as an American, an Iranian American, it's my duty to create some type of a bridge between these cultures, because who else is going to represent Iran? And when you're saying Persian Founder Series before, I said, no, call it the Iranian Founder Series, because everything good can't be Persian. Persian cat, Persian carpet, Persian cuisine, and then everything bad is Iran and the mainstream media, Iran bomb, Iran terrorists, Iran this. So I thought I'd come back and create an Iranian arts and cultural foundation, because our arts, our culture, is deep, it's beautiful, our philosophy, Rumi, etc. It's wonderful, and we Iranian Americans need to be and learn about it, which is that's the process of going back to Iran and connecting to stuff. I'm not an expert and by any stretch, but I'm learning about it. I'm much better positioned than my American Native Americans to people born here to know about it. So be that bridge and bring it here. So that's why we started Farhad Foundation, and it's been a success because the market needs it. It's a good organization.
Well, Farhad, thank you so much for spending time. I think this conversation can go long, but I really appreciate you sharing so much knowledge, experience. I think I'm pretty sure people know why you have been successful and overcoming so much challenges as a person, as a founder. And it's amazing that it's as an ongoing, once you're an entrepreneur, it just doesn't stop. I thank you so much. With that, I look forward to seeing you soon over Tachin then.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.